Are you, did you share it on ESPN?
I am about to. I'm creating a post as we speak.
Cool. I was going to share it on my page. Or actually,
You can just share the ESB one when I do it.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Share it on my
Yep.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, we're just now getting on the stream here. What are we doing today? Today, Vic's been talking to me about wanting to learn how to play 8-ball a little better, so we're going to go over some 8-ball strategy. I think this stream's going to be maybe, we'll see. We can fill up the whole hour with 8-ball strategy for sure, so that's not an issue. Anyone that sees the stream, gets on there and is live, obviously I would love any commentary, any comments, any questions, please ask. Make comments after the fact. We will look at all the comments that are posted over time and respond to them. Any more deep diving that you'd like to see on any particular subject, get in there. We'll cover it as much as we can over time. So keep these balls out here. So this is a 9-foot table. Most 8-balls played on a bar table. So it's going to be a little bit different. But with that being said, it's not like more or less difficult. It's just a different game. A little bit different strategy.
Okay, I shared it to your profile and to mine and ESB.
Great. So I'm going to break this on the way I like to break on the 9-footer, which is just a head ball. But I will spend a couple minutes talking about the break and different strategies. The equipment that you're playing on and the rule set should guide you to what break you're going to use for any table that you play on. Where we live, there's mostly diamond bar tables now, but there's also valley bar tables. My opinion about the break is, depending on the quality of the equipment and the condition of the equipment, there's really, there's several different ways to break. I'd say the main ways, you'd say you're either breaking from the middle area of the table, head ball, and just trying to break them as big as you can. You may be breaking from the side rail, this area here or back here, breaking the head ball to either try to get your cue ball to squat this way. There's some people that like to cut break and go to the side and back into the rack to try to make the 8-ball. If you're playing an 8-ball, break is a win. Then some people try that where they'll like break from here, for instance, glance off the head ball, go into the rack, and then withdraw a lot of the times, like glance withdraws to draw it back to hit, so they can put more speed on it, come straight back in and hope to kick the 8 into one of the holes or even banking over here. You could also try that to go this way and back. And this would be similar to like the cut break in 9 on the spot 9-ball, where you'd be like breaking, but instead of breaking from the side, you're breaking from the middle area as far out as you can, because ideally in that cut break, you want to be further out, because then you can get more of a glancing blow, and then you get the energy, is proper. But it kind of like depends. You have to like adjust it. This is all based off of like what you're trying to do. And then the second break that's pretty viable on the bar tables is to break the second ball. So like you're basically trying to hit it. Mostly the way I like to do it is hit it as full as I can, basically just barely miss the head ball, hit that ball as full as I can. And then what normally kind of happens to me is that you don't really have to put draw on it. You almost want to hit like stun, because you do get a little bit more energy back into the cue ball when you contact it, because there's more mass here, and that does actually matter a little bit. Not a lot, but it's enough when you're using that much energy that there's the extra residual energy is, you know, it's meaningful enough to account for. If you're like good at it, you start paying attention to it, you'll see it does react differently than just hitting a ball that's here versus hitting a whole stack of balls. You know, so then a lot of times, you know, with that second ball break, you can hit as heavy as you want. You can play like stun like I like to, which is you basically play it and then you're trying to go back into the balls, because ideally what you want is the cue ball to end up in this area so that you can shoot into all 4 pockets, potentially all 6 pockets, and then all you need to do is have one ball available. And this would be typically in like, you know, open table after the break. I like that. When you're playing make it, take it, I mean, it's basically the same thing. Then, you know, that's more of a strategy differential. But also people will play, you know, the head ball or the second ball and then break and try to go side rail, end rail, and then back into the bottom of the stack, or like draw and then try to come up. It's all, you know, you gotta experiment with different styles. I think on the valleys that don't rack very well, I like to break second ball, because then you can make the 8 a lot of the time, which is nice if you're playing 8 as a win. And then also if the balls aren't racked very well, you know, if you hit the second ball, you're actually getting more energy into the middle of the rack than if you're like getting a loose rack and you're hitting the head ball and then maybe only partial energy. Most of the energy, when you're like, if the head ball isn't frozen to both of the balls, you know, say it's only frozen to the 12 and it's off the 14. If you like hit the ball here, then the initial energy is going to go into the 12. And if they're both frozen, then not half, but like energy will be going into the whole rack, and then that will actually push into the 8 and then push these balls out. But if the balls are not frozen, then what will happen is like one line will like rocket around, and then this one will just like fuzz out and like be like, so which ends up turning into more of a moving game, which if you're a defensive player or you have a defensive understanding of the game, then you don't worry so much if the balls don't spread really nice. If you're an all-out offensive player, then you're probably better off with the head ball break, because you're going to get typically a better spread for that. And the more aggressive you are, the more beneficial that is. But it also, like, if you don't make a ball, then if the other player is a good ball runner, then you're also dealing with that. So just kind of like, just if you're not making balls on the break, you know, breaking head ball, and then your opponent is good, then you're just going to be losing by breaking and not making a ball. If you spread the balls out too easily, too nice, then they'll just run out every time. So you need to be having a high percentage ball pocketing for that. The second ball break is more defensive minded, where it seems to be that most of the time when you break the second ball and you make a ball, it's because you got a good break and a good spread on these balls, and then now it's likely that you'll have an opportunity to run out. And if the balls don't break well, that means that they're all still tied up, and then your cue ball is going to always end up in traffic down here, and they're not necessarily going to have an opportunity to like get out right away. So kind of like in a situation where the balls aren't breaking well or the conditions are rough because everything is kind of like worn out, you know, then it's fine to break second ball and then just play a longer game. It's just what you end up doing is you do that. You can do that partly because you know the other player maybe is not as good of a run out player, and they still are trying to run out. Like if you're, you know, like a more skilled player, obviously you can kind of do what you want a little bit, and you can kind of get away with using like what I would call what would be like an exploitable strategy, meaning that you're not really playing the best, highest percentage for your own self, but you're incorporating the expectations of, you know, your opponent's historical averages, so to speak. If they're not running out, like breaking and running racks out, you're not necessarily going to concern yourself with breaking the balls sloppy and then leaving like 2 to 3 clusters that need to be addressed before someone can get out. That kind of game is going to take a while, and if you're getting multiple opportunities at the table, then you know you should be fine against a weaker player than yourself, because you know each opportunity you have at the table, you should be able to gain an advantage, you know, over time by controlling the rack, you know. So anyways, about the break. So I'm going to go ahead and break. We'll see what happens here. And I think on a 9-foot table, what you end up with a lot of times is it's more of a shooter's game. because the balls are going to be more available because there's more space on the table. But then what you end up with is the benefits and burdens of it is that you have more available shots, but then you also need to move your cue ball more, and you're going to have to make more difficult shots because the balls are going to be further from the holes. Like for instance, there's going to be balls, over here that you can't shoot into the side. Now you got to cut it all the way down, and then it's like you got to get your angles right, which is obviously important on a bar table. But like you're not going to shoot that many shots on a bar table that are further, that are this long. On a bar table, this is like a shot that your object ball is traveling this far is pretty rare. You're basically shooting it from like on a 7-footer. If you're shooting a shot that's like this far, like say this is the object ball and this is the pocket, on a bar table, the bar table comes to like here, so you'd be shooting out of the hole here. So if you're shooting like short side and the cue ball was down here and you're shooting a shot that's like in the kitchen all the way down to the other side, that's the equivalent of this. I mean, that shot on a bar table is about as tough as it gets, but that's like normal on this table. So you just got to understand that bar tables end up being a little bit more where you have easier shots, but you need to get your position a little bit more finely tuned because there's going to be more traffic, and if you get on the wrong side of the ball, you're going to have trouble. And then also because there's more traffic, that means more clusters. So you're going to have to learn how to deal with the clusters, which ends up being cue ball control ultimately. All right, so if we're playing, I'm just gonna stick with like BCA, CSI rules. So it'd be open table after the break, regardless if you make the ball. So the way that I kind of look at everything, and this is, pretty simple rack because there's no balls that don't go. The only really ball that you'd think is actually tough, that doesn't really have a good hole, is the 7. With that being said, as soon as you shoot the 3, it goes right in there. You can get to the side pockets too. This area here is nice for the 7 to get you down here. So it's really not a big deal. The main thing that I'd be looking to do is eliminate the 3 first as much as I can, because I don't want to move the 8. Because if I move the 8, it might get worse. This is fine. From here, there's plenty of room. So like, my priority here is to like get to a spot where I can get to the 7, these 2 balls on the end rail, on the side rails, because they're a little bit more difficult, and then use like these 2 balls here, the 2, the 3, and the 6 to like manage getting that. As soon as I move the 7, that opens up an entire area here. So what I probably do, what I like doing here, I'm not going to shoot the 1 because it's more missable. I like shooting the 5 first. I think that when you're playing games where you have options for multiple balls and you're coming to the table, it's wise to shoot an easier shot to make so that you can kind of start your run. With that being said, that you do have to like make sure you play better position. But I like to try to like take on a little bit of an easier shot, go for a really nice position, and then just live off that residual. Now, if I was going to play strikes here, what I'd end up doing, let's see, the 15 doesn't go past the 12, but the 12 is there. I might shoot the 12 first, just to remove it, so the 15 goes, and then come over to this side of the table, and then play at this 11 to come up for the 15, and then once that's happened, I just got to get the 9, and now what we're doing is we're making sure that we stay below the 7 as much as we can. This is like a little bit tricky with strikes here, because the 7 is kind of blocking a lot of the nice, like not all of it, because you have this whole angle is like pretty easy,